Before we move on to adding fur to this character, I would like to see how it looks in render right now. And so we have this flaw. Let's switch to cycles render now. Yes. And I'm gonna add, and gonna split this view so we can have a camera view here. This 3D view, switch to the camera. Now let me unhide the camera that I've just recently hidden and move it a little bit in so that's more interesting, and so that's looking at our character from more interesting angle. Like that, and let's switch that to rendered. Depending on your how powerful your computer is, this rendering might go slower or faster. Just keep it in mind, or it can make the computer work slower. So let's first add some lighting, and then we're gonna move on to maybe shading the eyes. So I'm gonna, we had a lamp here. Let's see how it looks. It looks bad, so I'm gonna delete it. Let's add the sunlight. And move its direction a little bit so it's not that boring. Like that. Maybe even change the temperature of the color a little bit to something warmer. And maybe even intensity. That's a bit too much. 3. Yep. So now I want to take care of these eyes, and maybe we could even give the whole character some shaders. Yeah, let's give it some default shader. Like let's call him Furry, and this will be Furry's skin shader. And we're gonna give the same shader to the eyelids. First skin here, first skin here. Like that. I'm gonna split this view, so oops. I shouldn't have done that. In case you accidentally do it, you can still split it back and switch to 3D view. Okay, let's just switch this view to node. Let's just switch this view to node editor. And I wanna maybe even make this a little bit more glossy. Add glossy BSDF and add mix shader here. And mix glossy and the diffuse connected to that. And you see it gets a little bit glossy, but let's increase the roughness just so it's a little bit glossy. And I'm gonna change the color of his skin to something a little bit more natural. A bit red, but it's a bit... Okay, I'm gonna set it to this color and decrease the saturations. A bit more reddish. Kind of like that. When you do skin, actually, if you're doing like realistic skin, we usually use subsurface scattering, but it takes a lot of power. It looks beautiful, but it's it's much slower. So we're not going to use it now. So let's move to the eyes. This object that was around the eyes, as I said, it needs to be transparent. And I'm gonna give it, so it's Furry's eyeball. And for this one, I can use just glass BSDF. That's basically the same as glass. You can see we're already getting something here. Need glossy, because it is glossy. Let's mix this these two shaders. If you don't understand how nodes work, it can be hard at first, but it's quite important to understand them. So, and you can only start understanding them once you work with them enough. So just follow me, repeat what I do. If you don't understand, then the understanding will come. Okay. Now let's get to this guy. Give it a new material. And this will be Furry eyeball inside. And I think I shouldn't have raised the roughness of the glossiness, and it actually needs to be pretty low. That way we can get this beautiful glossy highlight in the eyes. Now you can see that the eyes, let me render it so you can see it in a bigger picture. You can see that the eyes right now look pretty gray, even though the surface of that eye is white. That is due to the fact that this is a reflective surface right now we have on the eye, around the eye, but what we have around is gray, so it's reflecting gray. So let's fix that. I'll switch my nodes to the world, and instead of gray, I'm gonna maybe even set it, well, white is too white. Let's set to some sky-ish color. Just a little decrease saturation just a little bit. And the value might be too much. A bit more blue. And the strength we could decrease just a little bit, because we're gonna add some more lights to the scene now, so that we have more things to reflect. That's the thing when you work with reflective materials. Make sure that these materials have something to reflect, otherwise you're gonna have some bad results. So I'm thinking, let's add a plane here. I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees, and maybe I'll put it here. Rotate it 45. Minus 45 degrees along z-axis, and let's give this plane an emissive material. I'm gonna call it light, and I'm gonna switch to emission, and maybe increase the emission. You can see this highlight from that object here. Maybe switch it to some warmer color. Oh, that's too much green. Maybe even more emission. And let's add another one. I'm just creating a shadow. I don't want it to do that. Like that. Yes, and so that they don't obscure our view all the time, I'm gonna switch them their max rendering mode to wire. I could hide them, of course, but then they're gonna hide from this preview render, even though they can be visible in the rendering. I'm just gonna switch it to wire, so we're gonna get just this outline. And if we want to, we're gonna be able to select it, but it's not gonna be obscuring anything in our view. So let's get to the eye itself. So the one that is, I'm gonna press slash on the numpad, so we go to this isolation mode where I only have now the selected object. Now I would like to apply some materials to that surface. So let's switch our node editor back to the object mode. We have the material we have here right now is white diffuse, and it's what we want for everything, for the whole eyeball inside. But for the iris, can I add another one? And I'm gonna select I'm gonna select these polygons, these faces, and I'm gonna give them the iris material by pressing assign. And let's just change the color of it to black for a second. How many you can see already there? It's showing up, but that black might not be the best option. Let's make it brown. Yes, and you can already see like how the eyes are giving so much life to the character. So much more life. Let's give this area the same. Material, yes, so you can see it as like that. Usually, of course, you would use a texture for this area instead of just using a color, but I think it's good enough for now. Maybe we'll edit later, or maybe we won't. This is a cartoony character so far, so I don't see any need to. So let's move on, and I think we can start adding some hair to that character.